Well, good evening, everybody. This is Eddie from the Bronx here, and I don't know where Tony is. Um, so let me just get it started. Welcome to Tiger Talk Wrestling. Tonight is a very special event. Oh, there you go, Tony. I didn't know where you were. Sorry, my brother. I don't hear you right now. So I think we're having a little technical difficulties and all that. Yes, we are having some technical difficulties. Well, let's get it started. Tonight is a very special edition of this. We are doing the rivalry of two of the greatest in ring performers of the World Wrestling Federation in WWE history. Two-time WWE Hall of Famers, the Hitman Bret Hart and the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Well, folks, this is going to be an interesting one because we're not just going to start from when they were in the 1997 Survivor Series, the infamous Montreal Screwjob, but we are also going to talk about that next week. But we are going to talk about the history of these two gentlemen and their accomplishments in the WWE and all that. So it's going to be a great time to talk about the history of Bret and Shawn going back to their days as the Hart Foundation, Bret with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and Shawn Michaels with everybody's favorite guy that we still even make fun of, Marty Jannetty and the Rockers. So we're gonna have a great time with that. But before we get to that, I think we should talk about their accomplishments in the WWE. Shawn Michaels, a two-time World Wrestling Federation champion. Bret Hart, a five-time World Wrestling Federation champion. Shawn Michaels, I think he's a three-time Intercontinental champion. I'm not sure. But Bret is a two-time Intercontinental champion. He beat Roddy Piper and Mr. Perfect. So you know that was a good one. Bret Hart is a two-time World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champion with his brother-in-law, the great Jim the Anvil Neidhart. So that's great. And then Bret Hart is a King of the Ring winner twice. Bret Hart is a co-winner of, and I still don't know why they did this. Bret Hart is a co-winner of the 1994 World Wrestling Federation Royal Rumble with made in the USA, Lexi himself, Lex Luger. So some great moments for that. And Shawn Michaels, well, we already know, he is a two-time Royal Rumble winner, winning the 1995 and 1996 Royal Rumble. But the one that I remember, and I know Tony will, was the 1995 Royal Rumble, where him and Bulldog started from number one and number two to the end, and Bulldog thought he won, and Shawn Michaels went on to WrestleMania 11 and lost to Kevin Nash, Big Daddy Cool Diesel, and then everything went to shit. So that's all it's in, but we're going to talk more about two of the greatest in-ring performers of the WWE. But we also want you, the audience, move your ass, leave a comment, subscribe. Tell us what your favorite moment of this rivalry between the Hitman Bret Hart and HB Sizzle himself, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. To me, hands down, you cannot compare two of these guys. Not you can't compare both of these guys because they had a great career.
I agree. I think you can hear me now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can, and I am so
Okay,
sorry
good.
I went off on a WWE moment.
Hey, it's fine. But yes, in my opinion, WWE champions of all time, or WWF champions as they were back in those days. Two of the greatest to hold that Winged Eagle title. I personally, as a kid, favorite wrestlers was Bret. I had a jacket kind of similar to his, more so than a black jacket. I would pretend to be Bret Hart at times when I was a kid. I was wrestling around with friends. Bret was, like I said, the first person that I first favorite, kind of an idol, if you will, and to. Whereas, of course, we changed a little bit for kids that were young, but Bret was definitely my first favorite. Shawn came along and kind of took, not just for me. When you seen Shawn went into, we'll get into the matches, of course, but going into their WrestleMania Classic, of course, that we'll talk more about. Still to this day, I feel like men, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, are up there, top tier, top wrestlers of all time in WWE.
I totally agree with you. You have this thing that they ask wrestlers and fans, who is on the wrestling, the wrestling, what is that thing the wrestling mount, the mountain of wrestling wrestlers who you think deserve to be on the
Now,
Russian mount. Yeah, that word. I just got tongue tied. Um, if we want to say right now, my first two will be these two, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. Then you gotta go with The Undertaker. Um, I gotta go with Taker with that. Ric Flair. And then, oh man, it's really hard because you definitely got to put Roman Reigns because of the
yeah,
run
nowadays.
He had. And then if you really want to put a curveball in here, you got to put Gunther.
Yeah, that'd be a bit put in there too, but
But then you have Austin
yep.
Rock. Austin and Rock, yes, they believe. Let
Yep.
me say this: the it will be a long list of people on that mountain that we will have to make two of them.
At least you know who decide. God, thanks for your interesting, weird comments. I'm not going to repeat them. I showed them on the screen, but if you
Oh,
could,
you
I
went
mean,
back
we like the
to
comments, but
Oh, so you went back to
go ahead, Eddie.
1974. Did you have your DeLorean?
I know, right? But we do prefer that the comments
What the
mostly be
fuck?
wrestling based. This is a wrestling show. We don't care about Elon Musk too much.
See, that's a different
Wow.
doing. So you traveled to the future. Congratulations. Can you pick me up? Can you pick me up? Can you pick me up something from the future?
Well, you might know. Wrestling talk preferred, anyhow. Yes.
Congratulations. Yep, we talk about wrestling. That's the name of our thing. What do I want? Shit. I don't know. I'll get back to you.
He wants a New York Yankees World Series victory shirt.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Tony got me. If you could go back to 1923 and get that pocket watch from the Yankees when they won their first world title, you will be amazing.
Yeah.
Baby, we have a time traveler on our podcast. It's awesome.
Yes, we get to hear Eddie's level.
Yeah. Sorry about that, but hey, are you the guy from TikTok that says you
Oh, she's fine.
traveled to see Michael Jackson?
We'll try to get you what you want. Hey, we get thumbs up.
I lost track.
We were talking about Rushmores and where Bret and Shawn fit into greatest wrestlers of all time. That said, we're going to dive in the actual rivalry of Bret things, Dan, after I get these. Do I take the brain chip from Elon Musk, whoever ends the world? Okay. But in AI and brain chips. Okay. One more interesting comment here from Brother Fluff. Berry, top 10 order: Bruno Sammartino, Nature Boy, Ric Flair, Brian Michaels, Hulk Hogan, Roman Reigns, Stone Cold Steve Austin, June Steamboat, and Kurt Angle. A good list. I would say you're missing out on The Undertaker being in there, but that's me personally and Macho Man Randy Savage. But who exactly? Who in? Who in opinion? Yes, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels had many great matches, as we're going to go to the moment. All right. Keep those comments coming, if you would, please, about Wrestling Con. As we see if this how this is going to show up here, because my screen doing something completely different now. So, do aha! All right. So this is a list of 16 matches that they have at least here. That doesn't list the times that Bret and Shawn teamed up, because I did see that they have teamed up at least once, if not a couple times, during their career as well. But the first thing to do, keep looking at chats too. First match you go to is the Hart Foundation Rockers, as these two men both started as those Hart team. In a minute. Hart Foundation, the Rockers had their very first match August 1989 at Civic Springfield, Massachusetts. On primetime run that went to a 13-minute second no contest. From what I had seen online, this was something the Rockers and the Hart Foundation had been trying to get at the time executives to let them have a match against each other. It took a long time for them to finally get it, and then this was the first time that they actually competed against each other. Not a match that we'll get into here in a few. That was more list ones. Booger, Doink, Repo Man, Crush, Hulk Hogan, and Hakushi. I could see WWE potentially buying AEW in 2029, but we shall see. But anyways, you had that match that went to a no contest. Then it had the Hart Foundation versus the Rockers that went to a time limit draw in New York's Madison Square Garden at a house show, pretty much in the garden. But yeah, actually, the primetime wrestling match was the one I was talking about.
I remember that one. I was actually at that event when the Hart Foundation against the Rockers. It was it was a good match. It's just, that's the way they did it back then. That they basically did house shows. They never did really live TV time with these two. I wish they did more because you got two great teams, and I think the time that they had that match, the Hart Foundation was still under the tutelage. See, I'm saying Gorilla Monsoon, um, of Jimmy Hart.
Yeah. Well, the match that I remember most, there from August 29th, I think, on Primetime Wrestling, was the tag team title match that these two teams had, or maybe that's not. No, that was a Saturday Night Main Event match, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That they got listed up there. Anyway, rope broke off when they had the match against each other, and the Rockers technically won WWF Tag Team Championships, but that was stricken from the record book, and Foundation was given back the title because of the rope breaking. I think that's the first match that many people think was the first match between these two teams.
I totally agree with you because everybody, like I said, there was mostly house shows between the two teams, but that was the first one, and yeah, they did show highlights on Primetime Wrestling of the Rockers winning the tag team titles, but due to the rope breaking, the titles were reversed back to the Hart Foundation, and the Rockers really never got a shot at the tag team titles again. They
Right.
were always they were always facing teams like Power and Glory, the 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 Powers of Pain, the Twin
Yeah.
Towers,
Mm-hmm.
the Natural Disasters. They really never got another tag team title shot.
Right. Which is crazy to think of because the Rockers were a great high flying tag team, in my opinion, back then. And that's a team that never was technically the WWE or WWF tag team champions at any point in time. They were one of the most popular teams in WWF.
Oh, most definitely. When you went to Madison Square Garden, every time that, believe me, every time that WWF had a live event, I was there. Um, you never heard so many girls yelling, "Take your shirt off," and they really had
I
their
believe it.
shirts already off. And I'm like, wait a minute, you want them to take their shirts off? They already did that. What more clothing do you want them to take off?
Well, maybe you don't want to know. Oh,
No, no, I know what it was.
you
I
mentioned,
know.
right? You mentioned here both guys were part of that Royal Rumble match in 1990. Bret and Shawn's first singles match technically was on a wrestling challenge taping, Lee County Civic Center in Fort Myers, Florida, but it went to a double DQ for in 20. It wasn't a barn burner banger as we know them called it these days. Um, but yeah, they have 4 matches between the Hart Foundation and the Rocker, including the 2 matches we talked about match, and also the Tokyo match that mentions there, where the two teams went at it for the fans over in Tokyo, Japan. All right, and that was pretty much Japan was the last time we'd see the Hart Foundation versus the Rockers. They both teams are parts of them at least. 15-man battle royal in April 14th, 1992. And then we'd get our first big Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart as he got the Intercontinental Championship on the line in a TV taping event at the Civic Center in Ontario, Canada. Canada's from, so I'd imagine Bret Hart definitely had the edge crowd-wise over Shawn Michaels going into that match.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't know if Shawn was a heel at this point, um, or if he was still part of the Rockers
I
with
think he
Jannetty.
was
Uh,
at that point.
okay, so he was yeah. Knowing the match, it must have been good, but yeah, when you have the home, the home country boy, wrestling Shawn Michaels, yeah, you're gonna know how good it is.
Right. That one went 13 and a half minutes, just over, for Bret to defeat Shawn to retain the Intercontinental title. They have their first match against each other in Portland, Maine, for TV taping as well in Civic Center on July 22. Bret would, of course, beat Shawn to retain the title in 13 minutes and 45 seconds, 46 seconds, whichever it says there. Back then, of course, in 1992, the ladder we didn't really see in the WWF, as WrestleMania 10 in 1994 would be the first big ladder match we'd see in WWF.
Oh yeah, like you just said, ladder matches were basically a house show attraction. There was not really a, I don't know why they never did it, but it was always a house show attraction, but not TV time ones, or like they do, like, people, please don't make me feel old, but I'm gonna say it. They only did special ones for Coliseum home video. This is how old I am. I just said
Yeah.
VC Coliseum home video. Yeah, this is how old I just made myself. Congratulations, Eddie.
I've seen plenty of Coliseum home. Mostly was the pay-per-views, but I've seen plenty of the home videos that you could get in like the Blackbuster or the they were known back then, before they were Blockbuster.
Yeah,
So, and before Family Video was a thing. Of course, none of those exist now, but
it's a shame we outlived it.
all right. Well, that's because people use those streaming services now.
Yeah.
But let's go. The very first pay-per-view match between the Hitman and the Break. Of course, you got heavyweight championship on the line and would defend against the Intercontinental Champion Heartbreak Rivalry Series 1992 in the Richfield Coliseum. What do you remember most about that match between the first match, really a singles match that you see on pay-per-view?
Well, the what I remember about the match, this is Bret Hart's first television defense, and Shawn Michaels was coming off of winning the Intercontinental title from the British Bulldog on episode of Saturday Night's Main Event. What I remember about that match was it was a first sign about how good these guys work together as single competitors. Shawn was coming into his Shawn was coming into his heel persona, you know, and then Bret was the world champion, other than a man named Hulk Hogan. Vince
Right.
was going a different direction. I mean, we always said today, if you want to watch Summer Survivor Series '92, I thought that was one of the best matches on that card. I mean,
Exactly.
other than the Razor Ramon Ric Flair versus Mr. Perfect Randy Savage
Yep.
encounter, because that was not supposed to be the match. It was supposed to be the Ultimate Warrior. But I think, hands down, that was one of the greatest matches on that card, because the rest of the card was garbage.
I mean, they got a good amount of time because they got over almost 27 minutes, over 26 minutes, 40 seconds at it, with the WWF Championship for an Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah.
Of course, for a full year, calendar year, as they would face each other in a match that wasn't supposed to have two men involved in. It was supposed to be Jerry the King Lawler, as we discussed last week in our first perspective. But it ended up being the Hart family, Bruce, Wayne, or Bruce, Keith, and Owen, rather, up against the Black Knight, the Blue Knight, the Red Knight, and Shawn Michaels taking the place of Jerry the King Lawler. I do recall seeing that match and how things went. The thing that most people, I think, take out of that match is the strife or the family of the Hart family. The only member of his got eliminated in this match, and he was that happening.
Oh, thank God you didn't say Ray Combs.
Family Feud.
Yeah. You want my opinion with that match? My opinion of that match was, thank God they started the heel turn of Owen Hart, because of that rest of that card. Same thing like we said. It wasn't really. There were some spots with feuds, but other than that, it was a garbage pay-per-view.
For the most part, yeah. 93 Survivor Series was in Boston. And I don't remember who was under those costumes. I'm sure I probably could find it too bad enough, but definitely the only one you really cared about on his team. But again, the only thing that you really took out of this match was that 3 of the 4 Hart family members won the match and starting his heel turn. So,
yeah, I mean, look at what we got. Look at what we got. We had Bret teaming up with 2 retired brothers and Owen Hart. I think put Bret down because I love the Hitman Bret Hart. That match was more of a focus on Owen.
Yeah, that's for sure. So then they go from there. Out of work here. I didn't realize that. No, they didn't. Sorry. December. Next month. A couple weeks later. 2 weeks, week and a half, something like that. December 3 on Superstars taping. We get Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart going at it in Utica, New York, the Memorial Auditorium, in a steel cage. I'm sure that had an interesting steel cage match between the Hitman and the Brick Kid, only 11 and a half minutes long, but gives you a little hint of what you'd get between those two guys.
You said Poughkeepsie, New York?
No, Utica, New York.
Utica. Holy shit.
UTICA. Yep.
Okay, I know where that is. Yeah, it's really not a lot of stuff around there. I've been there. It's like you're going to your grandmother's house and going like, oh look, you made.
That's unique. All right. So before I go into that, interesting that they go from a match into a steel cage match between the two. That's what they did. That was only like a week and a half. So again, probably from But then from there, a month later, January 11th, do a match between the two for raping in the Civic Center in Florence, South Carolina. This would be pretty much the first time ever that was recognized as Shawn Hart by disqualification, but he still picked up the victory for the first time over the Hitman.
Wow.
And that was for a Wrestling Challenge TV taping. So WWF Wrestling Challenge I think, which was on USA Network at the time.
Yes, it was.
And of course, both men were involved in the 1994 Royal Rumble, as Eddie mentioned at the top of the show, that Bret Hart was one of the co-winners of with the total package, or then known as Made in America, Lex Luger. But then those see each other, not touch each other again until 1990. And go because 19 Michaels, Bret Hart in the very first WWF 60-minute Iron Man match. These two men, they had a great build to this matchup, first of all. It wasn't your traditional way to get to the WWF WrestleMania main event necessarily, but we still got this. Shawn, of course, had Jose Lothario with him pretty much in the build up to this, because that's one of the guys that trained him originally and did train him for this grueling 60-minute Iron Man match. Bret had his help getting ready for it as well. The Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim had a classic on their hands in the main event of that show.
Man, first ever Iron Man match. To me,
Yep.
These two tore the house down.
Yes. I'd agree.
And I'm not gonna say what I want to say, but I'm gonna do it. There is nobody right now or in the past that could top Bret and Shawn WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match. They had tried, but nobody can do what they did for 60 minutes and not have a pinfall until sudden death. That, and Bret was injured.
Right.
Bret had a shoulder injury, and he went through 62 minutes. What was the time of the match?
61 minutes 50.
Yeah. When you go that long with an injury and you don't come out the World Wrestling Federation champion, but you got to give it up to Bret, man. I mean, you got to give it up to Shawn, too. I'm going to say what Vince said on that pay-per-view. Shawn Michaels have lived his boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels. Yeah. I mean, what a match for both. But you started seeing the cracks of their relationship as friends. Because if you look at Shawn talking to Earl Hebner, get his ass out of the ring.
Right.
But hands down, one of the greatest Iron Man matches of all time.
Honestly, I think you still could say to this day the greatest Iron Man match of all time.
Most definitely.
Like you said, I don't see anybody ever doing that again, going 60 minutes with no pinfalls or submissions. They've done it like on TV, but in an actual stated Iron Man match, I don't see it anybody ever going 60 minutes with no falls and then going into an overtime to determine the winner. to watch back then. I've watched this match a few times, and that's easy to go back. Honestly, there's some points when you watch like an Iron Man match that you can get bored when you're watching it. But this one I felt like kept you kind of on the edge of your seat throughout the entire show, even watching it back throughout the entire 1 hour. There wasn't much downtime.
Okay, so the two research, I actually went back and watched that match. I already saw it like 5 or 6 times already. But
right.
The calculation of Bret and Shawn in this match, they took it slow, but they also made it look good.
Right. That's not something everybody can do, but those two men did that. Exactly that. So, but so too. I mean, there's one more match we got to discuss, which we'll get into. But I'm gonna get rid of this. We know what that match is, because these two men would only have one match against each other.
Yeah.
So, the Iron Man match. You get that out the way, and then Bret Hart, of course, goes off, has his surgery. He's off of TV for months and months. Shawn Michaels has his reign, his first ever WWF champion. You and I have discussed this before. We felt like the reign should have probably been shorter than what it was. Shawn should have been more willing to drop it to a couple instead of saying, no, I'm going over. Bret comes back. He goes into Austin, of course, right away, which would launch Stone Cold into what we now. But it was kind of the catalyst of in this rivalry, though, there, because not only did Stone Cold and Bret have their rivalry, but it would lead to Stone Cold and Shawn's rivalry later as well. So, which of course happened after Bret Hart left. So,
yeah,
a lot of things would go down.
Like you just said it. Like, we had 3 rivalries out of that rivalry between Bret and Shawn. Like you said, Austin and Bret, Madison Square Garden, Survivor Series, 1996. I just finished watching it. I thought it was the best work from Austin, who was new to the WWE. He showed that he can handle the big dog, and which it was Bret. And then you go to the match with Shawn Michaels and Sid. Sid took Shawn to the limit, but they worked really well. And then you fast forward it, you got Bret going after Shawn, you got Austin going after both of them. But you can't also forget how all this intertwined for WrestleMania 13. Shawn couldn't wrestle because he lost his smile. But if you add Taker and Sid, you would never have that match. I mean, Shawn was an inner point of getting to that. I mean, we would have never had we would have never had the match at WrestleMania 13 to show what Austin's level was when he had that submission match with Bret and the infamous bloody face. I mean,
yes, Shawn out. He didn't submit.
Yeah, he didn't submit, but you know what? Look at what we got. We got some great rivalries heading into what we're going to be talking about next. Heading into 1997 and the transformation. Because right after that match in 96 with Austin, Bret Hart became a tweener. Nobody ever saw that coming.
No.
I mean,
they didn't.
All this goes back to 1996 at WrestleMania when Bret walked out of that match, the World Wrestling Federation champion, and then Gorilla Monsoon changed it and Shawn won the title. I think that bounced everybody that we didn't believe, like we said, you said this too. Nobody know what we were going to get out of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Right.
To me, you got to take
because Austin was, as you said,
the ringmaster.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, I think the Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels rivalry created future superstars.
On many levels. Because, as you were saying,
Yeah.
I mean, their issues led to Shawn losing his smile, wasn't at WrestleMania 13, leading to Undertaker and Psycho Sid for the WWF Championship in the main event. Taker wins the title. Get to lead us into, of course, Survivor Series of '97, because Undertaker would go on to have this. Did it come to an end, and how exactly did it end? Because it had us, the Hitman, but it had to do with the Heartbreak Kid as well.
Oh yes, it happened in New Jersey, like always. It happened at the 1997 Survivor SummerSlam. Like I said, if you want to watch that 1997 SummerSlam, watch that, and then watch this year's CM Punk Drew McIntyre match. I swear to God, it's the same fucking thing due to Shawn Michaels making. See, this is why you shouldn't have anybody from creative that been in a match. It was the same shit, but backwards.
Kinda, yeah. Because Shawn Michaels was the guest referee between The Undertaker and Bret the Hitman Hart for the WWF Championship. We know Shawn used the chair for Bret, but Bret ducked. Taker took the chair shot. Bret pins Taker. 1, 2, 3. Bret WWF champion. When we talk about that, though, you got to talk about the next.
And also in that pay-per-view was the night Owen Hart power drived Stone Cold Steve Austin into that match.
Yes. The tombstone into the mat that took out of action kind of for a while, even though we didn't really go off TV. So he had to forfeit that Intercontinental Championship that he won that night. So then we're going to fast forward a little bit. September's pay-per-view came and gone. But that leads us to October. Bad Blood. Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, as Taker wants his revenge, in the first ever Hell in a Cell match. You get Kane's debut about this match in a previous episode. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, Hell in a Cell matches of all time still. Shawn beats Undertaker. But throughout all this, though, you can't even forget Shawn don't act anymore at this point in time, though. Of course, that degeneration X becomes a thing because of what the Click, Kevin Nash and D-Ball leaving, led to DX's emergence eventually. And so we got Shawn was with Triple H and Ravishing Rick Rude at Hell in a Cell match. But the stipulation that Cell match was the winner would go on to Survivor Series to compete for the WWF. If we will go back to Bad Blood, of course, Bret was in a tag team match that night. No, because we talked about it before in our review retrospective for it. But that brings us to Survivor Series. The last match between the build up to it was incredible. Storyline behind it, of course, for anybody who doesn't, WWF was to an end. Bret apparently did not want to do the honors. He didn't want to give up the championship. Man went into business for himself. Eddie, you want to happen on this fateful last night that we see?
Well, it's called the Montreal Screwjob, ladies and gentlemen. Bret Hart did sign with WCW, World Championship Wrestling, and Vince asked him to relinquish the title to let Shawn beat him, and Bret said no. So Vince took it in his hands, and we get the Montreal Screwjob, and the rest is history. Still to this day, and it's been a long time, we still talk about this because it was one of the Fabregas moments in WWE. You had the owner of the World Wrestling Federation at the time screwing one of his wrestlers over to take a title off of him, and nobody ever thought about that. Bret lost in his own move. And yes, it was a shitty job, but I get Bret's side. He would have gave the title, but he didn't want to give it to Shawn, and I get that. But Vince didn't want Bret to take the belt to WCW like Alundra Blaze, what they call her Medusa. She took the women's championship to that and threw it in the trash. Vince didn't want that. But, ladies and gentlemen, we got something good out of the Survivor Series that night. We got the creation of one of the greatest villains in World Wrestling Federation history, Mr. McMahon.
That is true. Whether you like him or not, because I mean, we've talked potentially that, but I don't know if we will. But let's see. Vince hasn't always been the greatest guy, but his character on WWE screen was all time and led to one of the greatest rivalries of all time with him, called Steve Austin. I'll start Screwjob. I mean, their friendship was destroyed pretty much at that point in time. Luckily,
and the shit.
Luckily since then, Shawn has faith, if you will. Shawn has completely life from what he was back then. He has apologized for everything that happened. Are able to get along and see side by side, if you will. And we've seen them bury the hatchet, so as to speak, on WWE programming since then. But yes, I feel like the Montreal Screwjob will go down as one of the greatest rivalries of all time in WWE/F history, whichever way you want to put it. Because it was the WWF back then. You necessarily call it that these days.
Yeah. And look at the trajectory of the Montreal Screwjob, how it changed the way wrestling is. Look at Bret Hart's career after this. He became, and I don't want to say this because I love the Hitman Bret Hart. His WCW run sucked.
It did.
He wasn't the same man.
No.
He wasn't the same man when he went to WCW. And that is Eric Bischoff's fault.
Right.
I blame Eric Bischoff for that. Because what do you do with Bret the Hitman Hart? Okay, the Hitman Bret Hart's coming in. He's a pissed off guy. He just got screwed by Vince McMahon. What do? You make him a referee for the match between Larry Zbyszko and Eric Bischoff for the control of Monday Nitro.
Yep.
Wow.
Right. I mean, he comes out later in the
That's
same
not
night and for the Sting and
that's not a
still.
yeah, but he wasn't. I know he was supposed to be a part of it, but that's what you do with him. You want ratings. You want him to bury Vince McMahon and to keep the ratings going from Monday Nitro. You let him bury Vince,
Right.
but they didn't. They just let it. Their major, and please if I say this wrong, their major surprise after that was ravishing Rick Rude.
Yeah. That's because
You
we
got a
were on
pissed
both
off Bret
shows.
Hart. Yeah. You got a pissed off Bret Hart, and you just say, oh, it's okay, let's not use it. And you give us ravishing Rick Rude. This is why WCW is not in business anymore, that type of bullshit. It would have blew up WCW to a point. I don't think the Attitude Era would have helped them.
Quite possibly. I mean, all they did with Bret was they gave him first run, which was kind of shitty. And then, I mean, he does have, what, 2 world title runs, I think, after that, and became part of the NWO, 2 different versions of it.
And the tag team.
Yeah, and a tag team title run with Goldberg. And like I said, he was twice, including the NWO 2000, where he was technically the leader, I guess you could say, of the faction before Jeff Jarrett became, which was just a bogus version of the NWO anyways, but still. But that's pretty much all they did with him, and then Bret loses his career to Goldberg in a title match, and that Bret still blames Goldberg for, but it's all right. He has his reasons for it, and we won't fault him for it.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the flip side, look there, because Shawn Michaels would hold the WWF Championship from until WrestleMania, where he would lose it, of course, to Stone Cold Steve Austin to start the Attitude Era. He was out of action for 4 years. We wouldn't see him again. I mean, we'd see him occasionally here and there pop up on TV, but he wouldn't wrestle again anyways until 4 years later in 2002. Then we got to see that last run.
So we're saying they both had a crappy. So we're both saying that they had a crappy career after the Survivor Series.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, eventually.
Yeah. There's. And look how many people left after the 97. Look at how many people left after the Montreal screw job.
Mm-hmm.
Bulldog left.
Yep.
Jim Neidhart left. And Brian Adams.
Yep.
I mean, and then Bulldog got hurt. He came back after it. I mean, Jim Neidhart didn't wrestle that much anymore.
Those two both.
The only left survivor of that night. Yeah. And the one that only lasted was, we talked about it, the 1993 Survivor Series match. The heel turn of Owen Hart.
Right.
Look how a couple of years later, Owen Hart was the last surviving Hart in the WWF. And I still, to this day, and I know it's Bret, and I know we're talking about Bret and Shawn. I think right then and there, they should have pulled the trigger of giving. Go back and forth. I just say this. Who was Shawn Michaels' first opponent for the World Wrestling Federation title at that year's D Generation X?
Oh,
Ken
was it Owen?
Shamrock.
Yeah, that's right. I think it was Owen.
It was Ken Shamrock.
Yeah.
I feel, and maybe you could say I'm wrong, I think that night Owen Hart should have been the World Wrestling Federation champion.
Played off on it better. Drum Bum 90 says Bret screwed Bret. And we can talk about
Yeah, to me, I think Owen should have been the World Wrestling Federation champion. And yes, you can't. I'm not going to say that Owen should have kept it, until the Royal Rumble, because we would have never got that match with Taker and Kane and Taker and Shawn at the casket match. But let Owen have the title maybe for like 2 weeks and then take it off of him. I mean,
yeah.
we already know how good Shawn and Taker would have been, but I still think to this day Owen Hart should have been World Wrestling Federation champion. I still say that. I still say that today that British Bulldog should have been the World Wrestling Federation champion. I mean,
Right.
two great talents that never got to the top of the mountain.
Yes. So, as I said, the viewer Drum Bomb 90 says that's been at the forefront of them ever since it happened in 97. I want your opinion, Eddie. What way do you think it is? Screw Bret? Did Earl Hebner screw Bret? Did screw Bret? Which way do you look at it?
Okay, so my opinion, and I'm old school. If you are leaving the company, if you are leaving the WWE or at that time the World Wrestling Federation, and you are the World Wrestling Federation champion, and your owner tells you to drop the title to whoever it is, it maybe could have been Shawn. You don't play that creative card and say, no, I'm not dropping it to him. I'll forfeit it the next night on Raw. No. You leave as a professional. What Vince McMahon did was to save his company from being destroyed.
Sure.
I love Bret the Hitman Hart, but do not disrespect the company that made you who you are.
Right.
Look at the difference of Bret Hart's career after 1997, after he left the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to say this, and I'm going to say it. He became Hulk Hogan's bitch.
Pretty much.
And I hate saying that. I hate saying that about Bret. If Bret wanted to be his own man, Bret could have just been like, you know what? I'm dropping the title to Shawn. I don't give a shit you hate him. Do it for the people that made you World Wrestling Federation champion. Don't do it like Alundra Blaze. I feel like still to this day, Alundra Blaze should not be a WWE Hall of Famer because you disrespect the company that made you who you are.
Right.
And I know she was in WCW, and I get that. But you do not throw the championship that you say you're throwing in the trash. And I feel like, to me, all out of this, Shawn had a better career because it lasted a little longer than Bret. But to me, I think Bret Hart, yeah. Do I think Bret Hart screwed Bret? Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks like Vince screwed Bret, but like you said, all said and done, Bret's the one that didn't want to drop her. Bret wasn't doing what was, as we best for business. He wouldn't do the honors, if you will. So yeah, I think I'd have to agree. Bret kind of screwed Bret here because you're leaving the company. You know you're leaving the company. Just drop the title. then there wouldn't have been an issue if he would just agreed to drop the title to Shawn. There wouldn't have been submission tap out, if you will, even though it wasn't a real tap out. But Bret didn't want to do the honors, so Vince had to take matters into his own hands. Bret showing up potentially with the WWF Championship on Monday Nitro the next night and dropping it in trash like Eric Bischoff slash Alundra Blaze do when she leads title. So that brings us to the end of their rivalry, their matches against each other.
One more thing. Look at what happened a couple of months down the road. Shawn get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
He had a herniated disc. What did Shawn do? Shawn had a shitty attitude back then. Shawn Michaels gave a shit about Shawn Michaels.
Right.
But he did what was best for business and dropped the title to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And then we got the Austin era.
Right.
Shawn did it for the business, not for himself. And that's why I have a little more respect for the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, because he did what was right for the business, not for himself.
Right. No, I got. So it's pretty much I talk about the matches between these two, but I got one more question for you, Eddie, and I'm going to answer it myself as well. Which one would you say WWF champion and wrestler between the Hitman Bret Hart and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels?
I am going to say this, and I know it'll be a shock to people. Hands down, I think the greatest World Wrestling Federation champion and finalist champion was the Hitman Bret Hart. That man defended that title everywhere.
That's true.
Shawn did, but Shawn didn't do as much work as Bret did. Bret did it with a broken finger. Bret defended that title more times. I don't know how many times he defended it, but anybody wanted a shot, he defended, even if he was a heel. He defended that title against anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's go back to Monday Night Raw a couple of years ago. You know, back when he was in his first reign as World Wrestling Federation champion. Look at the match he had against Sean Waltman and the 1-2-3 Kid.
Right.
That was a great match between two athletic guys.
Right.
I mean, Bret even had a match with a 45-year-old Bob Backlund and wrestled him to his style. So, in my opinion, it's the Hitman Bret Hart.
I feel like Bret was the better WWF champion. I mean, Shawn had the better career, in my opinion, though. Because Shawn's career lasted longer, and that second run, then after him coming back from the back surgery and the run that he had, even though he only had one world title reign in that second stint, and that didn't last long, I still say Shawn Michaels Hitman's, even though I will agree Bret Hart was the better WWF champion.
Yeah. I agree with you with that. I think Shawn had the better overall career. I mean, yeah, Shawn Michaels did an excellent because he had a second burst of life.
Right.
I agree with that, but yeah, it's really hard, and you know this is for both of us. It's really hard because these two are one of the greatest in-ring performers. It's hard to say a bad thing about both of them.
Right. That is true. If Anybody else that's watching the show right now wants to give their opinion on who of these two men was and why, go for it in the comment section. Otherwise, we're going to give them a couple minutes. But it's going to be the last time you're going to see us on air. And then we've got one more thing to do here soon. As this upcoming Saturday, November the 16th, we've got Survivor Series. Talk a little bit more potentially about that 1990, but we'll mainly talk about the rest of the Survivor Series since we've discussed that match on here in the Montreal Screwjob. 1997 to, and then we're going to take a little time off from that. We're going to take about close to 2 weeks, a week and a half, before we go into retrospective part 3, because I'm not going to be in town to do anything next. So, but we do have November 25th, we'll do the retrospective part 3, and then the 26th, we'll do retrospective part 4. Those being a couple days, the Monday and Tuesday before. And then, of course, the day of Survivor Series, we got something special in line. What is the plan? Which it's kind of looking like it will for Survivor Series, Eddie.
Yeah. Weather permitting, you'll be coming to the New York home of me, the final boss.
Yes. We'll do our prediction shows house. I did see, speaking of Survivor Series, start time is 6 p.m. Eastern time. So our prediction show will either be 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. We'll have to figure out between now and then. But we will do the prediction show, and then we're going to do our watch along again, like SummerSlam. This one will be a little different because we've got things set up a little differently, is the plan. So be on the lookout for that. And then in December, we've got a couple shows, discuss the dates yet for it, but we're going to be looking at doing a Starcade retrospective and at Saturday night's main turns here in December as well.
That one's going to be great, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, at least me and Tony don't have to ride on a horse like Vince and Jesse.
That is true. All right. You guys, a couple minutes, nobody said. Do want to say thank you to the 3 guys that were, even if as off the wall as God loves you, B28's comments were. Still appreciate it. Thanks to Drum Bum 90 and Brother Fluff Salisbury for their comments as well. Watching, we are going to close this one out, and we will catch you guys.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Go ahead.
We'll talk afterwards.
Okay.
Have a good day, people.
Catch you guys on the next one. Whoop. We got Arrow. And we also got we'll catch you guys Saturday.
Yeah.
Loads. Come on, today, Junior. Now it says it play already. Hold on, we'll get close. This video played.
We're on.